First order of business, let's give a huge hand to Kendall here. And Sam and Kira and the whole Hustle team, all the volunteers, right? Awesome, awesome, awesome event. And to all of you, obviously, huge hand for everyone here who's, I was talking to people earlier in the breaks and stuff like that, and they say, like, in order to grow, you should surround yourself with people smarter than yourselves, and I honestly feel like the dumbest idiot here, because I was talking to so many amazingly smart people, all of you guys. Like, I feel like I'm learning more than, I'm learning more from you, if anything, tonight. Because just so much, so many great ideas being put out there, so much great content, so many great startup ideas, so much awesome stuff out there that I'm just leaving here super energized. So it's great, it's so great to be here. Thanks to the Hustle for having me. I want to start out with kind of a question. Who here feels weird about asking for a raise or for a negotiation during a job interview? Like a lot of people, right? I'm terrified of it. I hate conflict so much. Like, I could be getting stabbed and I would say sorry to the person who is stabbing me. Like, it's just like I'm sorry in your way of your knife. Oh, man. But it's something we have to do, right? Like, how many posts have we read that are like, if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it? Similarly, I feel like people have the same approach to self-promotion. You feel weird about being that guy or that person who's promoting your band's show or whatever the case may be. I used to do, I'm from Chicago. I came in from Chicago, and improv. You can't not get an invite to go to an improv show from your friend, and it's like, okay, I've gotten the 6th invite to go to your improv show or whatever the case may be. There's this weird vibe about promoting yourself and promoting whatever it is you're working on, whatever you're passionate about. But at the same time, there's a catch, right? How are people gonna see this awesome stuff that you're working on, this awesome project that you're passionate about, without putting it out there? So tonight, I give you all permission from me to be totally comfortable with the fact to promote yourself. It's not weird. It's not looked down upon. It's something that we all need to do, just like we all need to ask for more money in that job interview, just like we all need to confront those realities of our life. And promoting yourself shouldn't be this it will still feel weird. I'm not gonna waltz in very confidently now in every job interview and be as I'm not saying that we won't have jitters to ask for that more money or whatever the case may be, but at least it'll maybe destigmatize the negative vibe of ugh, I feel weird promoting myself. So the reason that I'm talking about promoting yourself in a way that doesn't feel too self-promotional is because it's a problem that so many of us have, and whether it's yourself or whether it's a brand, I deal with it on a daily basis. So I was reading this study from Contently, which said basically that a brand that publishes a blog post, let's say, but then includes a hard sell in their blog post, it dings brand credibility by 29%. So what does that mean is you worked so hard to get fans, to get a great blog presence, to have that kind of trust with your audience and either existing customers or potential customers, but then you kind of squander it with a sell that you need to do. You need to sell your product, you need to sell your service, whatever the case may be, but for whatever reason, it dings that trust that readers have with the brand. So it creates kind of a catch-22, right? And what you end up having is people, whether it's personal people in your Facebook feed, or you have a lot of brands who are maybe they seem spammy on social media and whatnot. They have they just go haywire on the hard sell or just tons of posts about, hey, look at me, check out my site, check out my Instagram, check out whatever. And then you just squander any chance of getting any traction or new customers, new followers, whatever your goal is, whatever your metric for success is. And you just have people either not following you to begin with, or you have existing fans, existing people unfollowing you. And that is basically my daily struggle. My background is creative marketing director at Onion Inc. So that Onion Inc. umbrella encompasses The Onion, and it encompasses Clickhole, which I really hope you all check out. It's like my favorite website. It's amazing. It's ridiculous and crazy. And I'm in like a few random videos whenever they need an extra person. They put me in them, which is it's a huge honor. And then it also incorporates AV Club, which is like their pop culture site. But the way, like a lot of publishers, the way we generate revenue is working with brands. Now, instead of just slapping a banner ad on our website, what we do is we work with brands. Let's say it's Ford or something like that. We have, I know there are a lot of great audiences on the internet. I mean, I would argue to say that the Onion audiences have the highest bullshit detector of like any audience out there. And I know that's maybe a bold statement to make, but they are so sensitive to being sold to. They will call bullshit on being sold to, and it's been a daily struggle for us to promote clients who are paying us for the expectation of getting to all our readers, our millions of readers, our millions of fans. Like, our hands are kind of tied. How do we sell to our audience that we've spent 20 years building and gaining the trust of that audience? How do we do that doesn't make them go unfollow us? And at the same time, how do we further the brand message of Ford or whatever the case may be? And so my job is with my awesome team, of course, is to marry the Onion voice, the Onion sensibilities, with whatever the brand message happens to be, and create something that feels oniony, but is also furthering the message of the brand in a way that doesn't turn readers off, because that's the ultimate goal, is to have a win-win-win. It's to win for the publisher, us, because we retain our voice and retain our any semblance of integrity that we have, and it's a win for the brand because they get a nice piece of content that gets great engagement online and is really well received by our readers. And then it's obviously a win for the reader because they get advertising that doesn't feel like advertising and doesn't feel too promotion-y and doesn't feel like too much of a hard sell. And so one example I'm really proud of that does that in like making that marriage happen of the Onion and the brand voice is the next video here. And we'll get into like the format of what makes it a promotional piece of content without feeling too self-promotion-y.
Ooh, that's cute. When I first heard about Lawn BNB, I was nervous. Here I am, a woman, traveling alone, sleeping on a complete stranger's lawn. But then I booked a lawn for my trip, and it was so much fun.
Lawn BNB is so much cooler than staying on a lawn in front of some expensive hotel. Plus, you get to meet some cool new people.
My host, John, was amazing. Through the app, I learned that his lawn was close to all the cool restaurants and neighborhoods, plus it was mostly squirrel-free. And he took care of it with Scots, so I knew it would be really comfy to lay down on after a long day of exploring. And not only was it a Scots lawn with tons of natural sunlight, it also had awesome amenities, like a grill and even my own small bathroom. But do you want to know what the greatest amenity of all was?
Yeah, I proposed to Annie on her second day of staying on my lawn. We're getting married next spring. Right here, same lawn. So yeah, I guess you could say Lawn BNB changed our lives.
It's really dumb, really dumb. So before getting into some of the intricacies of the video itself, here's some results of selling without selling out. We have, I'm going to get to the comments in a second. We got 2.6 million views. Yes, there was some, on Facebook, there was some paid behind it, but it wasn't a lot. It was, at the end of the day, when we break it down, it was taking into account how much paid we put behind it, it ended up all coming out to less than a penny per view, which means basically, with the upshot of all that, what that means is it was shared as much as an editorial piece of content. So people were sharing it as much as, one of my favorite Onion headlines is, laid back company lets employees work from home after 6 p.m. That's like one of my favorite, so like, that's like an editorial from the geniuses of the editorial side of our publication. But people were sharing this Lawn BNB video as much as an unbranded piece of video, and it was almost, I mean, it was pennies to promote it. And then engagements include, I mean, 823,000 engagements, many of which were the comments. For me, I know all the other people were talking about how comments isn't really, other speakers were talking about how comments isn't, like the share is the ultimate thing, and usually it is. For me personally, as a writer for this video, I love the comments. The comments is where I love living, because you have people like, we don't have lawns in Arizona, but our gravel is very small and round, great back support. And you could do, and then they like reply, and you could do those hot stone massages on your guests. And a lot of the times, like one of my favorite things is people tagging their friends in, like, you know, hey, instead of going to our, like, booking an Airbnb, we should do this on Lawn BNB. And so why this worked is basically, and the client was Scott's Miracle Grow, who came to us with a very odd, like, request, like, make Scott's something in consideration for millennials, which is like, how do you do that for millennial homeowners? Like, it's a good challenge. It's a good challenge to have, like, that it makes sense. And a lot of times I'm asked in the course of my job, like, how do you do stuff for brands that aren't super funny? And there's always a way to do that. And I'm coming at it from a humor perspective, but there's always a way for, maybe your brand doesn't have a funny voice. There's still always a way to incorporate whatever voice your brand happens to be with communicating that in your own way. And so the way we did that is we positioned the brands, in this case, which is Scott's, as a secondary part of a larger idea or story. So in this case, like, after a ton of brainstorming, we thought, what is like trendy amongst millennials is this idea of the sharing economy, Airbnb. That was the first kind of nugget that we were like, let's do a parody of Airbnb, let's poke fun at it. And which I hope resonates with this crowd and being in San Francisco. But then we were like, how do you incorporate the role of the brand in a secondary nature? So it's not going to be like Scott's B&B, because that wouldn't work. Like, if it's Scott's B&B, that does it tips our hat really too easily. So instead, we'll like say, well, it'll be called this larger thing. It'll be a parody of Airbnb. It'll be where you can book your lawns on people, you book your stay on people's lawns, and then within that, the best rated lawns use Scott's Miracle Grow. And I'll use this as an example for something personal. So I signed up for a spin studio recently, and it's like so hard to get motivated to go to spin class. I mean, to any exercise, to any gym or whatever. And as you can see, like, I've completely committed to it, and I'm super ripped after doing all that. But recently, I'd noticed that, like, oh man, I hadn't gone for a little while. They put together a Drake-themed spin class where it's like all Drake music. And I was like, yes, I'm gonna go. I'm like, I don't even care, I'm gonna go. It's still the spin class at the end of the day. I'm still like doing the exercise that I hate, but just like creating a hook, if you want to call it that larger hook of like, people love Drake. Well, in my case, I love Drake. And so they used that as a hook that actually got me to do something I didn't particularly want to do. So let's talk about you. It's easy to say, like, okay, we have the brand presence of the Onion. That should be easy to promote stuff. No, it's not. We're struggling with the same, like, same constraints and same challenges that everyone here is, whether it's someone who's blogging on Medium or someone who's just starting out with like a one-person startup or something like that. Everything I'm here to talk about in terms of self-promotion without feeling too promotion-y is something you can apply. So getting into the meat and potatoes of this stuff, the first rule that I adhere to is rooting your brand message, just like in the Lawn BNB example, rooting your brand and message within a larger, more universally relatable hook. The example of working from home after 6 p.m., that's every great Onion headline is because it's like, yes, I can relate to that. Oh my gosh, that's so true. My cat does, like, there was another one, it's like, cat thinks of nothing, like, cat couldn't be bothered to move from couch or something like that. And it's like, yeah, you can relate to headlines like that. So if you look at like a wrong and right way to do things, just like imagine if this was like a tweet or something like that. Buy my cookbook. I mean, yeah, you're getting right into the sell. Okay, yes, I guess. Versus what if there's a way to root the sale in something a little bit more relatable and more universally relatable? Eating well is hard for busy professionals. Yes, that I can relate to that. Tell me more. My easy cookbook can help with that. So you actually have a hook that can get people's attention, and then you offer something of value. Offering value or entertainment has been talked about tonight quite a bit, but that is ultimately what people want in any piece of content. And another example of maybe what to do and what not to do. You can, let's say you have a podcast. Check out the new episode of my podcast. This is like the Twitter equivalent of come to my improv show, without like any kind of incentive to anyone offering any kind of value or entertainment. Versus something like, imagine quitting your job to start a dog toy business. Hassan did just that on today's podcast, Risk-Taking and Following Your Dreams. So obviously, I'm here to request funding for a dog toy business, but this is the captive audience right here to get that funding. But you have something, and you've seen one of my favorite new podcasts is called How I Built This, and I don't know if you guys have heard it. It's great, and all their tweets to like check out their podcast are like the second one. It's like this person was a recovering heroin addict from Montreal and started Vice. You have like, yes, I want to listen to this. It's not just, hey, we did an interview with the founder of Vice. Like, there's not as much of a hook to that. And then I love Austin Kleon. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but he's a great creative thinker. Obviously, you don't want to turn into human spam. The human spam is the type of that guy that you all know, or that person who's always promoting themselves. Check out this, check out that. So when you keep that in mind, it's super critical to vary it up. So there's stuff like little tips and tricks like sharing ratios. So example that I like to use personally, just even on like my personal Twitter account, it's like 532 or 333. So like 5 posts from someone else that you share, 3 posts of your own that you're telling people about your own service or whatever the case may be, and then 2 posts that are maybe like about, congrats Cubs for winning the World Series. Not necessarily anything about yourself or from anyone else, just kind of like a general talking about The Walking Dead or something like that. So there are ratios out there, a ton of ratios out there. Some that I like to follow is just, a lot of it is just common sense, like have a little bit of variation in how much of others people's stuff you share versus the stuff that you share. And then most importantly, content types. I love different content types because you can have a testimonial, you can have an interview, you can have a case study. GIFs and infographics are so awesome. I love that. There's a great tool called canva.com that I use to use to make amazing infographics. It's such a cool way to spice up maybe an ordinarily very flat update or a very flat piece of content or something like that. But you can do that, and all of a sudden it doesn't feel like just a very promotion-y piece of content. It actually seems like something other people would want to share and other people would want to interact with. And then something like a user or customer spotlight. So you could, on the one hand, you could talk about how amazing your product is and like sign up for our product and you'll have these great benefits for it. Or you could actually interview like someone who's a success story that's using your product and have that be the piece of content for telling the benefits of the product. And that, for a lot of people, seems a lot more engaging and doesn't feel as salesy or promotion-y as just talking at people about what your product does. So, an example. I thought it'd be fun to kind of in real time put together a quirky piece of branded content that doesn't feel, that like sells a product but doesn't feel too self-promotion-y. So here's a thought. I came up with this idea does not exist. You all have signed mental NDAs with me to not make this. This is my ticket out of advertising, this idea. So it was just a hypothetical business called Face Cards, right? Actually, this is inspired by a creative director. I used to work at BBDO, and he does amazing artwork and portraits and doodles and stuff like that. So he's who inspired me. But let's say this is a startup. It's like one person who's an artist startup, and the business is business cards with an artist-drawn portrait of yourself on them. So you submit like your photo. This person will draw a cool, quirky thing, like this totally not fictional character at all, Will Shakespeare, and you get business cards that have a little bit of an added flair, an added touch, than just, contact info and name. So there's a little bit kind of a cool point of difference, an interesting little business idea. So how would we write, let's say, a blog post, just for the sake of something nice and fits in an example, write a blog post on the company's site or his Facebook page that promotes itself in a non-douchey way, that kind of communicates, hey, this is what just saying that I draw your portrait on a business card might be compelling enough, but what if there's like a more interesting way to make that case? So this is something I actually follow like day to day with my team. We have the big, meaty, relatable truth, if there's kind of like a flow, and whether it's an article or a video, like this works for the Lawn BNB example too. There's a big, meaty, relatable truth, and there's some nice content filler that then gets to maybe 3/4 of the way in, how the product ties in to that big, meaty, relatable truth, and obviously that has to offer some value or entertainment. So in the case of Lawn BNB, it was, the best lawns on Lawn BNB use Scots, and that's the value proposition that they're suggesting. And then there's some closing thoughts so that it kind of doesn't seem like you're just ending on a hard sell. There's a nice little way to exit gracefully. So for us, I did actually a nice hour of brainstorming on this. So what if the title for this is, or what if the relatable truth is that we can all, like, this is the business card, where you're giving out business cards. I mean, networking blows. That's like the relatable truth. Obviously, tonight isn't going to blow. Tonight's networking is going to be awesome. But like in general, in Chicago, it's actually pretty boring. Networking is it can get pretty grueling, and we don't see a lot of sun, and we're not very attractive people. It's just not a very. It's not awesome. It's not great, but that whole thing about, oh, what do you do? Oh, great, I do this, I do whatever. Now, what's your favorite deep dish pizza? Yeah. So if that's like the relatable truth across the board, networking blows. How would the product tie in? It's that Face Cards helps you leave a better and more fun impression. If nothing else, when your conversation is going a little stale, you'd be like, oh, hey, check out this, and it's an instant conversation starter, let's say. So a title of a post could be, how to tell if you're at a networking event or a really lame orgy. That's like how I would do it, with like an oniony spin. Maybe that's the voice of Face Cards. It could be anything, whatever your voice, you want the voice to be. It could be a little bit more serious than that. But the gist of it being, it's like you have a fun spin on that big, meaty, relatable truth. And so with that, I kind of whipped together a sample post. So how to tell if you're at a networking event or a really lame orgy. Networking and really lame orgies both involve a room packed with fully clothed people who make awkward small talk and wear name tags. And both can be super boring. Ugh. They're so similar, it can be confusing. So here are some handy tips to tell them apart, just in case you find yourself in such a room. So Then there can be a little bit, in this blog post, there can be some, in the stuff of like working your way towards this, and then you finally get to the how the product ties in, and it can be, if people are exchanging business cards, chances are you're at a networking event. Granted, it's no orgy, but it's a great opportunity to hand out your face cards. Unlike ordinary business cards, face cards features an artist-drawn portrait of yourself, which our fancy schmancy surveys found increase the likelihood of others remembering who you are by 80%. So yeah, if you're at a boring networking event, at least make it count. And then you go to the closing thoughts, and it's like, are people always checking their phones? Congrats, you're at a really lame orgy. So it's like, if you just end on the product, it just feels like to the reader like, you deceived me this whole time. If you can like put it in a little bit, and like I said, around 3/4 of the post or 3/4 of the video, then it doesn't feel like it was just like a trick to get people to some final hard sell. So overall, like creating content to promote yourself or promote your passion or promote your brand, I think at the end of the day, like you can use all these tools and all these little tricks, but honestly, I think you can trust your gut. Like if it feels too heavy on the I've been talking about myself, then just go back to those ratios and say like, okay, maybe you don't have to just completely shut down what you're doing. Just maybe recalibrate, share some stuff of other people, go back to the drawing board a little bit to balance out the sense of feeling too self-promotion-y. Similarly, there's a huge benefit in, again, varying up the ways you do things. So I've been talking about articles and video. Like I said, I'm a new fan of infographics and like GIFs and stuff like that. They just communicate a lot of what could seem very self-promotion-y things in a really fun way, and it doesn't feel like, I mean, I've seen, like, I would love to see a white paper or something like that just presented in GIF form. Like, it'd be really fun to see something that is very selly and very heavy in data and very heavy in content presented in an interesting way. It doesn't feel heavy, and it doesn't feel like that. So at the end of the day, also, I wanted to end on a note of, like, please go create stuff. We are in an amazing time. As Drake would say, what a time to be alive. It's an amazing time to be alive. Like, you can create, like, Broad City was a YouTube channel and got made into a TV show. Like, and I've heard so many times of people getting book deals out of stuff that they've been writing on Medium. Like, it's amazing how that's obviously not the purpose of life, to just to go viral, whatever the case may be. But at the same time, content, this idea of like creating cool content, is like, it is a really powerful time to be creating content. And I know it can be discouraging because there is so much out there, but I just really hope, even today chatting with people after this, that you feel energized to keep creating and keep like pushing to create cool stuff. And fail fast if something doesn't quite click, try it again, and just keep making, please. So with that, I think we're at questions.
Thank you, Hassan. Okay, so first question, do you have an example of a campaign that just fell flat?
What's up?
Do you have an example of a campaign that didn't work at all?
I wouldn't say that up in public. That would be. I'd say that we've had campaigns that have fell flat when the clients that we're working with like refuse to follow the structure that we were talking about, where they're like, no, product way up front. And if you're doing a standard TV commercial, yes, fine, that's going to work on a standard TV commercial. But with the world that we live on social media and like trying to get people to share an ad on our website or on social media, just coming in full throttle with an ad just doesn't seem to work for us, at least. That's very specific to The Onion.
Another question. So you guys obviously use humor and sarcasm. Are there other like transparency or other like themes along those lines that you would suggest like you were saying, if somebody's brand doesn't happen to be the Onion, is transparency, I know that's a commonly talked about one, but there are other themes that you can kind of work in there that basically make the hard sell less of a sell.
Right. I think that, like, for instance, I have a few friends that do, like, they're fashion bloggers and they have to, like, disclose that this is a like they've been given this free makeup or this free whatever from a company to talk about it. But I think the advantage of like having your own voice, like everyone has their own voice. So talking about a product in their own voice, but being transparent about it, it still doesn't feel super heavy-handed and super salesy when it's done in, this person has like a very eclectic, bubbly voice. They can still talk about it in a way that doesn't feel like, I mean, I think there are examples of like celebrities who literally copy and paste what the brand tells them to write about, and it's just like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad to be wearing my whatever, and it's like, it just feels like literally a sale. So I think when people put their own voice and their own little fixins on it, you know, it should all be taco analogies. Like just put some fixins on that, yeah.
All right, last question of the day, guys. So this is just kind of out of curiosity, because I think personally any brand that approaches you guys to do an ad campaign and just like gets it,
Yeah.
I think, especially with Onion, it just proves that you just get it, especially if you're able to make fun of yourself. What kind of like brands are you guys seeing approaching you, and are you seeing that more of these, especially older legacy, like Ford, for example, these older companies, are they starting to understand this more? When it comes to like advertising, they're getting that they need to do these types of things and come off as like, all right, you know, because we have such high bullshit radars these days. Do they get that? Are you seeing more of these companies come to you?
Yeah, I think we're getting a lot more where, I mean, like this elusive millennials that are out there, like they want to reach them, and obviously like there's that, like you said, that bullshit meter. But I think when companies, so like when Scott's is a great example, because if people were like avidly saying that good on Scott's for like getting it, being in on the joke, being cool with it, and all that stuff. So when people have that, see like brands poking fun at either themselves or like various things in pop culture or whatever the case may be, they're like, yes, they get it, they're hip with things, and there's like, not saying they're necessarily going to go out and like buy something from them, but at least they get like, they're cool, they speak my language.
Awesome. All right, that's it. Thank you so much.